Hello everyone, it's Robert Torvald, and as most of you who are Facebook friends of mine know, my father just passed away. Posted a video of him yesterday that was me talking about one of my favorite, best, vivid memories of him. If you have a mind, you can find it here on my channel, and it's called Memory of Dad, and it's public. More than welcome to listen to it. This one also deals with my dad, and it's about his truck. Now, as many of you who are my Facebook friends again know, about 4 years ago I bought the truck when he was no longer able to drive, and the family had decided to sell it, and I grabbed it up. And I have spent the last 4 years with as much money as I had available to me to restore it as best I could. And at this point, I got it pretty much mechanically sound. There's still quite a bit more to do. And I've been pretty stubborn about doing that. The amount of money that I have spent over the last 4 years, I could have probably gotten a newer truck that could do more or less the same job. But there is a history about why I'm doing what I'm doing, connected to my dad, both in this truck and another one. So I'm going to give you the whole history of why this is so important to me. So I'm calling this the Truck Saga. So we have to take a trip back quite a ways. All of my oldest friends will remember back when I was in my 20s that I had a 1968 3/4 ton Ford Camper Special pickup. Okay, that had been the family truck. My dad bought that truck in 1970, I believe. He got it 2 years used. And that truck moved our family from Ohio to California to Washington State and back down to California. Often with a full-size cab-over camper on it, hauling a trailer, trundling along behind my dad in the big U-Haul. That truck was a workhorse for my family. Spare me the found on the road dead or fix or repair daily jokes. Because honestly, for most of its life, it was probably the most dependable, rugged, hard-working vehicle that there was. And it did not break down that often. I mean, besides moving us around, it also hauled fertilizer and gravel and dirt and wood and concrete and whatever else we needed it to do, it did. And then finally, in my 20s, my dad sold it to me. Now, he sold it to me for just kind of a nominal amount. I mean, it was coming from father to son. It was staying in the family. But during that time period, I had a string of just pretty much minimum wage jobs. And I could not maintain that truck the way that it needed to be maintained. And so yes, it did start having issues. And I was constantly having to pretty much just jury rig it to get by. And then finally, through my own stupidity, it got caught in one of the floods in Napa, California, and ended up with water up to its dashboard. And that was pretty much close to the death knell for that truck. I ended up getting rid of it soon after. And I have carried a certain amount of guilt about it my entire life. As I mentioned, that was the family truck. And it's tough to explain. My father certainly never blamed me, and he never made any mention of it in a way to try and make me feel guilty. But there's always been that little gnawing going on inside me about how poorly I had been able to maintain and treat that truck. And then again, when it got caught in the flood, that was my fault. That was 100% my fault. I should have moved it. We knew the flood was coming, and I didn't. I was stupid. So now we fast forward to about 4 years ago, as I said. My father had developed early stage dementia, and he was no longer able to drive, so the family decided to sell his truck. Now that truck was my dad's baby. He loved that truck. I mean, as much as any person can love an inanimate object, many of us can have trouble with the words here. Many of us have been attached to cars for various reasons. So my dad was very attached to this truck in that way. And it was even more solidified because there was a point while they were still living in California that the truck was stolen. Somebody stole it, and my dad was beside himself. And they had contacted the Vallejo Police Department. They were living in American Canyon, California at the time, and Vallejo had jurisdiction out there for this. And they weren't able to find it. And so after about a week to 2 weeks, it was pretty much considered lost. And my parents started looking for another truck to replace it with the insurance money that was going to come. And so they had spent a day driving around Vallejo looking at various trucks and found nothing that they liked as well as the old one. Now, yes, you can say there is just this connection to the truck part that nothing is going to replace what you just lost. Okay. But in terms of the utility of this truck, they just, again, were not finding anything that could do the same job. So they were on their way back home. They were driving down one of the main streets in Vallejo, and my mother just happened to look to the right. And as she looked to the right, down a side street, there was the truck, just sitting on the street, in plain sight. And my mom screamed, "There it is, there it is!" And my dad, swung the vehicle around, came back in, parked right behind it, and sure as hell, that was their truck, sitting there, right on the street. So the first thing my dad does, ding, get the phone, call the police department, tell them, "Hey, I just found my truck, the one that you said you couldn't find. It's sitting right out here on the street. Get this, it's sitting in front of a wrecking yard." Okay? On the street in front of a wrecking yard. So my dad tells my mom to get in the driver's seat of the vehicle they've got right there. And he says, "I'm going over there. I've got the key. If I can start it, I'm driving it home out of here. You follow me." So he goes over, gets right in, fires it up, boom, they go. Now, aside from the feel-good story part of this, there's two kickers to this. Kicker number one, when my dad talked to the detective that was in charge of the stolen vehicle case for my dad's truck, the guy told him that they had suspected that that particular wrecking yard was dealing in stolen vehicles. So first, of course, my question is, why the hell didn't they take a drive by that wrecking yard if they already suspected that wrecking yard of dealing with stolen vehicles? Kicker number two. This wrecking yard in that street was approximately 3 blocks away from the main branch of the Vallejo Police Department. So it wasn't like they had to go very far to just take a drive-by and see if the truck was there. But they didn't. My parents did their job for them and found it entirely by accident. So God stepped in and said, you get this truck back. The only damage to that truck at all, this is hilarious, the only damage is they took the 2 risers that held the back flap of the camper shell up. That's it. Nothing else had been taken out of the truck. Just the 2 risers that held that thing up. So my dad immediately got an alarm system installed in that truck and a kill switch for the ignition installed in that truck so that it could never be stolen again. So there was a fate behind that truck staying with them and staying in the family. And you also have to understand the utility of this truck. This truck has a 6-cylinder turbo diesel engine in it, and it is one of the best engines that Cummins has ever built. It's often referred to as the million-mile engine. And this truck gets 20 to 22 miles to the gallon on the highway. And that's fully loaded and hauling. I mean, my father and I took a flatbed trailer with my 1999 Ford Ranger XLT on it and hauled it from Pennsylvania up through New York to have some work done on it. And the entire time we were going, that truck still got 20 to 22 miles to the gallon. It didn't care that it was hauling a trailer with another truck sitting on it. And I've driven that truck now myself more than 2,000 miles on a single trip, and the entire trip 20 to 22 miles to the gallon. So it is a fabulous truck for what it is. So the utility of it, again, to find another vehicle that will match the utility would be very difficult. So now we come up to the current situation, which was that when my father couldn't drive anymore and they put the truck up for sale, boom, I wanted it. And I had spent literally thousands of dollars getting the work done on it, getting all the mechanical issues dealt with. And right now, pretty much all of the mechanical issues have been resolved. And it is in great running shape. So what is left is predominantly body work. Things that I've got to take it to a body shop to get done. And I'm not talking just strictly cosmetic. Again, as most of you know, I just recently have it in the shop getting one of the floor pans replaced because it's rusted out. And I'm only able to get that done because of the generosity of one of my oldest friends in the Society for Creative Anachronism. Because, again, as most of you are probably aware, with the COVID situation that hit this year, my income has really tanked from the loss of Gulf Wars Pensick and the lack of any type of armor sales. So the money that had been planned to go into that truck this year just isn't there. It vanished. Now all of that is the mundane stuff. So let's get back around to why this is so important. I already told you about the guilt that I carried around for the old family truck. And some of you will understand perhaps that I almost looked at getting this truck done as something of a penance, in a way, to the family and to my dad. Okay? And I dearly wanted to try and get this restoration done while he was still capable of seeing it and understanding it and knowing how well I was trying to take care of his baby. And that hasn't happened. He's gone now. And I'm going to get this truck done. Come hell or high water. I'm going to get this truck done. So on the one hand, you can look at it as, I've got all the time in the world now. Well, you know what? You could have said that when I first got it 4 years ago. None of us have all the time in the world for anything. Regardless of what you may think about in your own life, if you're trying to achieve something and you keep telling yourself, I have all the time in the world. No, you don't. You absolutely don't. Take the time that you have right now and do that thing that you've been putting off. I'm as guilty of that as anyone. So, I am going to be asking for help. I've already received some. What I'm going to do is set up a GoFundMe account. I've had a rough estimate done that the body work that's needed in a new paint job is going to run roughly $5,000 to $7,000. And that's just impossible for me right now, especially with, again, the loss of income that's come about from COVID. And from the looks of things, I'm not going to have an opportunity to try to make that up until late 2021. And that's only if things settle down, which we have no guarantee it's going to. So, yes, I'm going to ask for help with this because I want to get this done as a tribute and memorial to my dad. And when I get the paint job done, I'm going to have some custom art put on it, either on the tailgate or up on the driver's side fender or door, wherever's a good spot for it. Because I named the truck Papa Bear after him. Because it's big, it's strong, and it growls, being a diesel. So I'm going to want to get that custom work done on the side there when I can. So that is the Truck Saga story. I know this is taken quite a while to talk about. But thank you all for your condolences, for your well wishes, and for your prayers. I and my family all appreciate it. So, God bless.